Tonight, the ring isn't just a battlefield. It's a place where legends face the shadows of themselves. Mike Tyson steps into the spotlight, muscles tense, eyes scanning the empty corner where no one stands. Yet something waits. Every step he takes seems mirrored, every movement anticipated. The crowd holds its breath, unsure if what they're about to witness is man or myth. Something powerful, something unseen, is testing Iron Mike in ways no opponent ever could. And as the bell rings, a chilling question hangs in the air. Can Tyson defeat what he cannot see? Welcome to Iron Fist Tales. Comment below where you're watching from and join the fight. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Today, we dive into a legendary night where Mike Tyson faces a challenge unlike anything the world has ever seen. The arena buzzed with attention that seemed almost tangible, as if the very air inside the massive hall were holding its breath. Bright floodlights carved sharp lines across the ring, illuminating every corner, every rope, every crease in the mat. Spectators murmured in excited whispers, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the man they all came to see. Mike Tyson, Iron Mike himself, would soon step into the spotlight. But tonight was different. Something felt off. A ripple of unease traveled through the crowd, subtle yet undeniable. Tyson's opponent wasn't just another fighter, it was a shadow of himself. The bell rang faintly in the distance as Tyson adjusted the fit of his gloves. His eyes, sharp and focused, scanned the ring as though it were more than a battleground. It was a mirror of his own fears, a reflection of his instincts sharpened to an almost supernatural degree. The whispers from the crowd grew louder. "They say he's not facing a man tonight," one voice trembled. Another added, "They say it's his shadow." Laughter and skepticism mingled with curiosity, but beneath it all was the unspoken understanding that what they were about to witness would be unlike anything in boxing history. Tyson's muscles tensed as he stepped into the ring. The ropes creaked slightly under his weight, yet he moved with a dancer's grace, controlled, deliberate, and calm. The air smelled of sweat, anticipation, and something heavier, darker, as if the ring itself were alive, watching him. He knew the challenge tonight would not be won with brute force alone. His instincts screamed that this fight would be a battle of mind, body, and spirit. A ripple of shadow appeared in the corner opposite him, subtle at first, almost imperceptible under the glaring lights. Every movement Tyson made seemed to be anticipated. When he bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, the shadow mimicked him perfectly. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The crowd murmured, some scoffing at the idea of a shadow fighter, while others clutched their seats, sensing the unnatural tension. Tyson's lips tightened. Brute force alone would not suffice. Strategy, timing, and intuition would be his weapons tonight. The first exchange came almost silently. Tyson feinted a left jab, and the shadow mirrored it flawlessly. He lunged with a right hook, mirrored. Every instinct that had served him for decades was now being tested against an opponent who could anticipate, counter, and reflect each move with eerie precision. The audience gasped collectively. What they were seeing was beyond human skill. It was uncanny, almost supernatural. Tyson's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadow with a mix of fascination and determination. This was more than a fight. It was a confrontation with himself, with every doubt and every fear that had ever haunted him. Time seemed to distort in the ring. Each second stretched into eternity as Tyson shifted, pivoted, and jabbed. The shadow followed, every strike mirrored, every movement predicted. Sweat glistened on Tyson's brow, not from fatigue alone but from the mental pressure of facing an opponent who seemed to know him better than anyone ever had. He realized that the key was no longer to overpower, but to outthink, to break the rhythm, to challenge the reflection rather than react. Tyson's footwork changed. He began a series of subtle feints and deceptive angles, forcing the shadow to hesitate, to misread, even for a fraction of a second. The audience leaned forward, their breaths held collectively. A gasp erupted as the shadow staggered ever so slightly, an almost imperceptible falter. That tiny opening was all Tyson needed. His eyes flashed with a predator's focus. He wasn't just fighting an opponent tonight. He was proving that mastery of one's mind could triumph over perfection itself. The shadow's movements became increasingly frantic, mirroring Tyson's strategy. Every blow was anticipated, every dodge countered, But now Tyson's unpredictability created chaos. He shifted from aggression to calm, exploiting the smallest gap, the slightest miscalculation. Sweat poured down his face, his gloves flashing in the harsh light. The sound of the crowd faded, replaced by the pounding of his own heart and the silent echo of his own reflection. Each moment was a test, a dance of willpower and instinct. Finally, the turning point arrived. Tyson executed a feint unlike any he had performed before. An intricate, deceptive combination that required split-second timing. The shadow lunged to match him, too quick to stop, too perfect to anticipate the subtle misdirection. In one swift motion, Tyson landed a strike, not on the shadow itself, but on the air where the shadow would have been, breaking the rhythm and asserting his dominance. The crowd erupted, half in disbelief, half in awe. Tyson's face, streaked with sweat, held a small, knowing smile. He had conquered the mirror, defeated the reflection of his own fears. The arena buzzed with electricity as the bell rang again. Spectators erupted, chanting, cheering, and whispering about what they had just witnessed. Tyson lowered his gloves, chest heaving, and walked toward the center of the ring. His eyes, scanning the corners where the shadow once lurked, betrayed a mixture of relief, pride, and a hint of amusement. This was not merely a victory over an opponent. It was a victory over the doubts and insecurities that even a legend like him carried into every fight. As he raised his arms to acknowledge the crowd, the shadows in the arena seemed to settle. The lights glinted off his gloves, reflecting the sweat, the intensity, and the triumph of a man who had faced not just another fighter, but the essence of himself. The whispers continued. Asterisk, no one has ever fought like that before. Asterisk. Tyson's gaze softened, almost contemplative, as if acknowledging that the battles outside the ring, the shadows we carry inside, often require greater skill and courage than those fought under bright lights and roaring crowds. Even as the audience began to leave, still buzzing with disbelief and awe, a subtle tension lingered. The story was not over. Tyson's shadow, though defeated tonight, was a reminder that the ring held endless challenges, not all of them visible. And as he exited, the faintest outline seemed to shimmer briefly in the corner. An echo of what might come next, a teaser of battles yet to be faced both inside and outside the ring. The legend of Iron Mike had been tested once more, not against flesh and bone, but against the very essence of fear, doubt, and reflection. And in that test, he had prevailed, reminding the world that true strength comes not only from power, but from mastery over oneself. Chapter 2: The Shadow's Return. The night after the arena's unbelievable spectacle, Mike Tyson could not shake the echo of what had occurred. Even in his private gym, the lights glaring down on the mat, he felt the presence of that impossible adversary lingering. It wasn't just his reflection in the mirror or the stretching shadows of the ropes. It was something deeper, more sinister. The memory of the shadow that had mirrored his every movement, anticipated every strike, refused to leave his mind. Tyson wiped the sweat from his brow, his chest rising and falling, heart still pounding. That shadow had been more than a fighter. It had been a test of his very essence. Outside, the streets of the city hummed with life, unaware that something extraordinary had occurred within the ring. But Tyson knew. He could feel the tension in the air, a ripple of energy that wasn't natural. He wasn't sure if it had followed him from the arena or if it had always been lurking, waiting for the perfect moment. A knock on the gym's steel door startled him. Tyson tensed, muscles coiled, instinct screaming alert. No one should be here at this hour. The door creaked open slowly. A shadowy figure appeared, cloaked by the dim light, barely distinguishable from the night itself. Tyson's eyes narrowed. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice low but commanding. No answer came, just a slight movement, a whisper of air. Then, with a sudden shift, the figure stepped forward. It wasn't fully human, yet not entirely unreal. A chill ran down Tyson's spine. The same reflection from the ring, his shadow, stood before him. This time, it wasn't confined to a corner or the limits of the ring. It had followed him, materialized in the darkness outside his spotlight. Tyson took a cautious step back, testing the distance. "You think you can challenge me outside the ring?" he said. The shadow didn't answer. It simply mirrored him again, every gesture, every blink, every shift of weight perfectly aligned. Tyson realized this would be no ordinary confrontation. The shadow had evolved. It wasn't just reflecting his movements, it was anticipating his thoughts, understanding his instincts on a level no opponent ever could. For hours, the gym became a silent battlefield. Tyson moved, jabbed, and pivoted, testing the shadow's responses. Each motion was perfectly mirrored, forcing him to think faster, act smarter. Sweat glistened on his skin, muscles straining with exertion, but still, the shadow matched him blow for blow. He gritted his teeth, understanding that brute strength was useless here. This was a mental war as much as a physical one. Every feint, every deceptive move, was a test of ingenuity. He needed to outthink the reflection, to force it into unpredictability. Time seemed to blur. Hours passed like minutes. Tyson's mind raced through techniques, strategies, and combinations he had never considered before. The shadow's movements, though flawless, began to falter, not from fatigue but from uncertainty. Tyson sensed that the reflection had learned to rely on predictability, mirroring his natural instincts without deviation. If he could break the pattern, he could claim victory, not over another man, but over the embodiment of his own limits. Suddenly, the shadow lunged with inhuman speed, forcing Tyson to react instinctively. He ducked, pivoted, and delivered a lightning-fast combination of hooks and jabs, not at the shadow directly, but at the space where it would have mirrored his attack. The strike disrupted the pattern. The shadow staggered, a flicker of imbalance appearing in its otherwise flawless movements. Tyson seized the moment, circling, controlling distance, and maintaining pressure without committing fully to a direct strike. The crowd from the arena might have thought they'd witnessed something impossible. But here, alone, Tyson realized the fight was even more intense. Hours of mental and physical exertion pushed Tyson to his limits. The shadow continued to match him, but subtle cracks appeared. A delayed response, a slightly misjudged pivot, a hesitation in anticipation. Tyson adjusted, exploiting these micro-errors with surgical precision. He was no longer just reacting. He was controlling, shaping the fight, leading the shadow into traps he had set with patience and foresight. This was mastery on a level beyond conventional boxing. Every move became a lesson in strategy, every strike a declaration of mental dominance. Finally, as dawn's first light touched the edges of the gym windows, Tyson found himself standing opposite the shadow, both panting, both tense, yet a silent acknowledgement hung between them. He realized this encounter was not about defeating the reflection with brute force, but about understanding it. Tyson raised his gloves, eyes locked on the shadow. With a deliberate movement, he feinted, shifted, and delivered a combination of strikes that forced the shadow to stagger completely. The reflection shimmered, then dissipated into the morning light, leaving Tyson alone victorious, not over an opponent, but over the limitations of perception, fear, and instinct. Tyson's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. He walked to the mirror, staring at his own reflection, now ordinary, mundane. But he knew what had occurred was extraordinary. He had faced the embodiment of his own fears, his own instincts, and had triumphed. Not by brute strength, but by clarity of mind and control of movement. The shadow had returned him to a level of self-awareness that even he had not fully grasped. Tonight had been a lesson in power, patience, and the unseen forces that can challenge even the greatest of champions. As Tyson left the gym, the city awakening around him, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The shadow would return one day, perhaps, but he was ready. Each encounter had taught him something new, not only about fighting but about himself. The night's confrontation had become a story of mastery, tension, and the eternal struggle between a man and the essence of his own power. And as he walked into the morning, a faint ripple of movement caught his eye, a shadow crossing a distant alleyway. A reminder that the ring extends far beyond its ropes, and battles are never truly over. The city's skyline glimmered under a pale moonlight, its quiet hum masking the tension that still clung to Mike Tyson. The encounter with the shadow in the gym had changed him. Not physically, he was still the same Iron Mike, but mentally a new awareness had awakened. Every movement, every instinct, every thought seemed sharper, faster, more precise. He knew that the shadow was not just a reflection. It was a test, a challenge from something beyond normal comprehension, designed to push him to his ultimate limits. Tonight, however, there would be no ordinary ring, no arena filled with spectators. Tyson had been drawn to an abandoned training hall on the outskirts of the city, a place where whispers spoke of strange happenings. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that crawls under your skin and makes each breath feel heavier. A single spotlight, dim and flickering, illuminated the center of the empty room. There, standing motionless, was the shadow. Not a human figure, but a dark silhouette, more solid than the air around it, more intelligent than any opponent Tyson had ever faced. Tyson stepped forward, his gloves tight, stance low, and eyes burning with focus. The shadow mirrored him perfectly again, every breath synchronized, every muscle tensed in anticipation. The first exchange was electric. Tyson threw a punch, and the shadow anticipated, countering with precision. Every move became a mental chess game, each strike a calculated risk. The silence of the hall amplified every sound. The scrape of gloves on mat, Tyson's sharp inhale, the shadow's impossible anticipation. The atmosphere was charged, almost alive, as if the room itself were participating in this battle of wills. Hours passed like minutes. Tyson feinted, pivoted, and strategized, testing the limits of the shadow's perfection. Sweat poured from his body, muscles screamed in protest, but he pressed on, driven by something deeper than pride or skill. It was the desire to conquer the impossible, to prove mastery over the reflection of his fears. The shadow, flawless yet subtly flawed, began to hesitate under the pressure. Tiny cracks appeared in its otherwise perfect mimicry. Tyson sensed the vulnerability and pushed further, every movement designed to break the pattern, every strike a probe into the shadow's limitations. Then the moment of revelation came. Tyson realized the shadow wasn't just mirroring his movements. It was responding to his confidence, his certainty, and his fear. When he doubted, it gained strength. When he acted decisively, it faltered. The key was not to fight harder, but to fight smarter, to embrace the unknown with calm precision. He shifted his stance, let his guard drop just enough to tempt the shadow into misjudgment, and struck with a combination so fluid and unexpected that the shadow staggered backward, wavering like a fading image. The climax was sudden, powerful, and cinematic. Tyson's final series of strikes, carefully controlled, precise, and almost artistic, forced the shadow into retreat. The silhouette shimmered, as though dissolving under the intensity of Tyson's mastery over himself. With a final glance, Tyson landed a decisive blow into the empty space where the shadow had been, and it dissipated completely, leaving him alone in the silent hall. Victory was not just physical, it was spiritual. He had faced the ultimate reflection of his fears, doubts, and instincts and emerged stronger, wiser, and unshakable. Tyson lowered his gloves, chest heaving, sweat glistening under the dim light. He walked to the center of the hall, eyes scanning every corner. The shadow was gone, but the lesson remained. True mastery was not about brute strength. It was about awareness, control, and the courage to confront what is unseen. Tyson's mind replayed the moments of hesitation, the rapid exchanges, the subtle falters of the shadow, each teaching him something new about timing, strategy, and the strength within. Tonight had tested not only his body but his spirit. As dawn broke over the city, the hall seemed to release its tension. Tyson exited, muscles tired yet heart steady, his mind sharp and clear. Outside, the streets were awakening, oblivious to the supernatural battle that had taken place. He paused for a moment, glancing at his reflection in the glass of a nearby window. The image staring back was ordinary, yet somehow different, honed, alert, and unbreakable. He knew that while shadows may return, he had grown beyond fear, mastering even the most elusive adversary. Walking away from the hall, Tyson reflected on the night's lessons. The shadow had been more than an opponent. It had been a mirror of his own limitations, doubts, and hidden strengths. Each confrontation in the ring, each battle outside it, had prepared him for this moment. Victory was no longer measured by punches landed, but by clarity, precision, and the courage to face oneself. And as he disappeared into the rising sun, a whisper of anticipation lingered. The shadows of the ring were never truly gone, and the next challenge would always be waiting, unseen but inevitable. And there you have it, the night Mike Tyson faced his ultimate reflection, a shadow of skill and instinct, and emerged stronger than ever. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what challenges await Tyson next, hit that subscribe button now. Comment below where you're watching from, share your thoughts on tonight's battle, and join the Iron Fist Tales family. Don't forget to turn on notifications, because in this world, the shadows are always watching, and Iron Mike's next confrontation could be even more explosive.